want to talk about my acoustic gig.
Let's hear it.
So I played an acoustic gig
Woo.
and tried a couple of things that I have not done before or haven't done recently, and just kind of wanted to share with the population uh, what I did and whether you should think about doing it as well.
Okay.
I did two things that I don't normally do. The first thing that I did was I did not take a break.
Hmm.
I played 3 straight hours with no break. Um, and that was a strategic decision, but also just kind of one that it started off, I had no intention of doing it. But it kind of got to a point where I was kind of on a roll and didn't need to stop
Right.
for any reason.
Right.
And so I just didn't. And then it got to the point where stopping didn't make any sense. So I was just like, well, I guess I'll just ride this out. I'm not saying that that's something that you should do, but I will say that the fact that I did not take a break uh, was something that the restaurant owner, manager, people noticed.
Yeah.
And I got multiple comments from staff that was like, man, you didn't even like take a break. For better or worse, it is something that, they do take notice of in certain circumstances.
And the other thing to notice is that we have them as conditioned as we are that taking a break is the right thing to do. Or
And listen, sometimes it is.
totally, no. I'm not saying not to. Just that, like, it jumped out at you that you didn't do that. It jumped out at them that you didn't do that. Like it was a thing. So
Yeah.
it's interesting.
Well, and then it kind of became like a challenge. Like,
Right.
Do I have the stamina to deliver and play well and sing well for 3 hours straight? And for those of us who have not been in practice as much as we have been previously, it was good to know that I could do it,
Yeah.
even if I don't necessarily do it in future exercises. But the big thing that I did that I don't normally do is I played a bunch of tunes I don't normally play. And I played a song list out of the dregs of the Facebook musician group, Dumpster Fire.
Yeah. Cover band hell songs.
Yeah, cover band hell is a great way to put it, or acoustic gig hell.
Yeah.
So I played a couple Neil Diamond songs, a bunch of oldies like Isley Brothers and the Beatles and Buck Owens, and I played Margaritaville. I played Wagon Wheel twice. I played a bunch of stuff that like people really like go out of their way to complain about.
Right.
And the reality of the situation was I was playing for a fairly small group of people. There were probably 5 to 10 tables total, and they were roughly half populated throughout the night.
And some turnover, probably some early crowd, late crowd.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the other side of it is that I was basically on the street. Like I wasn't behind a building or anything. I was literally like on the sidewalk.
Hmm.
And what started happening was one, people who had finished eating were staying, which I know is literally as a musician playing for a restaurant, like that's your job. Your job is to
Right.
keep people, paying money.
Yep. Get that extra
for
bottle of
drinks or food
wine
or
and
whatever.
yeah.
So that was happening, but also people were walking past the place and going out of their way and dropping money in my tip jar.
Very nice.
And I think part of it was the fact that I was playing stuff that people knew.
Sure.
And it was one of those weird exercises where in the moment I was consciously doing it, but like I kept thinking in the back of my head, like most people aren't doing this and they're screwing up.
Yeah.
After I ended up playing for roughly, let's say 20 people, give or take, over the course of the entire evening. There was at max 20 people at a time that were there. I made over $100 in tips
Nice.
for 3 hours work.
Yeah. No, it's great.
It's not bad.
Yeah.
And later on, I was listening to this week's episode of Gig Gab with our buddies Dave and Paul.
Yep.
And they were having a similar conversation about like what they were talking about was like dance floor fillers.
Right.
But the songs that they were talking about were the ones that I was playing. So I sent Dave a message and I was like, hey, great episode this week. I really liked what you guys were talking about. Kind of reinforced the feeling that I had. And the thought that we landed on, and I think the big lesson that I'm trying to get to is, as a musician, you need to get over whether you like a song or don't.
Yes.
And I think the thing that you need to prioritize or kind of get in your head is that you want to like the reaction of the audience that a
Hmm.
song gives you.
Yeah. That's how you know whether you like it, if they like it.
To me, that's where the rubber meets the road because it's so easy for musicians to be arrogant and kind of aloof about like song selection and like, oh, I'll never play this. And this is, beneath my standards or whatever. At the end of the day, your job is to keep people sitting, eating, and drinking.
Yeah.
And so, if that's what your job is, and that's what you're being paid to do, then you need to provide the service and the product that is going to maximize that kind of result.
I think some people live in the mistaken impression that their job in that situation is to entertain themselves.
Yeah.
And it is not. Your job is to entertain them. And as much as you may think some clever deep cut is going to stimulate their interest, the reality is they want to hear Margaritaville. They want to hear
Mm-hmm.
Wagon Wheel twice. Being fussy about that or being snobby about that just doesn't pay the bills.
Well, I think the flip side of that, I think that some people feel like, well, if I'm not entertained, I can't be entertaining.
Nonsense.
And I think that's where, well, I think there's a thread of truth to that, but I think that the way that you get around that is by doing the thing that I suggested, which is flip your thought process into I'm doing this song because it's going to give me the audience reaction that I'm looking for. Because if we're being honest as musicians, the reaction to the song is what we're after.
Totally. Totally.
And
Totally.
so if those songs are what give you the maximum quotient of that thing, then I think that we need to find ways to prioritize that.
Yeah, that is one way to do that. I mean, I'm gonna say I'm gonna say this badly. Real professional performers, like Broadway performers, like people who like honest to God, this is not just like I'm in a band that pays the bills, but full on like
This
theater
is my
performer
job, yeah.
people, right? Um,
Yeah.
a Broadway cast will do the same show 7 nights a week, twice on
Twice
Sunday,
on
maybe, right?
Sundays.
And so that's 8 shows a week of the same show over and over again. And how you feel about it, the fourth show of the week, the fifth show of the week, is not relevant, does not factor into what shows up on stage when you show up.
Yep.
Professionalism is bigger than whether I think this material is worthy of me. People are doing revivals of like cheesy ass 40s and 50s musicals that nobody loves. Maybe it's nostalgic for you, but it ain't Hamilton. Um,
Yeah.
um, and people, you would not know from anybody's performance that they, were living and dreaming and eating this show. It was all they did with their lives. Every show looks like the first one. Every show looks like it's just crisp and new and clean and energetic and, just like that. So
Well, yeah, you're also not seeing them phone it in.
totally, absolutely. No, that's what I'm saying. So, so I kind of push back on like, I have to be entertained to be entertaining. That is not true. You can put on entertaining even if you don't care one bit about the content.
Well, but I think it's the same kind of thing though, is that if you're not entertained, like you can find ways to be
Absolutely.
entertained
No,
while doing it.
completely. And one really great strategy is to be where the audience is and
Yeah.
enjoy their experience. That's a great strategy for getting entertaining, even though what you're performing doesn't entertain you anymore. Right.
Right. Well, but that's the other thing is that like there's so many of those songs though.
Oh
Like
yeah.
even if you don't love, some tunes, like there's just go back, and find stuff like listen to the oldies station and take down some notes,
Yeah.
or just look what other people are around in the market are doing or not doing,
Yeah.
and just find angles to do that.
Yeah.
um the other thing that like really worked was doing new stuff.
Hmm.
So I pulled out Tennessee whiskey and brought the house down. I did Adore You, and I'll tell you this: using the HX Stomp with the acoustic thing was like awesome because I put on like a dotted eighth delay, and so I could really kind of chug the chords and get like a rhythmic thing going
Hmm.
on top of like the harmonies and stuff, and it sounded really good. And I was like, man, this is really cool. And I literally like kicked into that first line of the verse, and like this table full of women just like
Yeah.
like snap to attention. I
Yep.
was like, okay,
Yep. Here we
you know,
go.
that's my lesson for this
It's a
week.
good lesson. It's a good lesson. We all should learn it.
So get over yourself. Play Brown Eyed Girl. Play it 3 times.
Play it 3 times. That's the beauty of a restaurant gig, by the way, is that turnover lets you not have to have a unique set list all night.
Yep.
You can actually cover tunes twice. Very good.
So,
Well, sounds like a fun gig.
yeah, it was good. And like the owner was there and like came out and was like, "We got to have you back. What is your, are you going to be here the week of Thanksgiving? Like, I want to make sure we can get you plugged in before it gets too cold and da da da." Like they were highly motivated to to hit me back up.
That's
So
what happens. That's how that is.
I did something right.
Yeah, totally.
I've had those nights where I finished and I was like, "Did I do a good job?"
Right,
Like,
right. There's no one here to tell me if I did or not. So
yeah.
what does that mean?
Yeah, no, and I feel like after doing a show like I did this past week, that those moments where I didn't get the response that I was looking for was probably because I was in the wrong headspace
Yeah.
and trying to do the other thing.
Right.
It's a valuable lesson.
Yeah.
Take it to heart. Make some money.
Play some heart.
Yeah, if it's in your range.